first found Living Forest on Boardgame Arena. The thing that makes this game unique or unlike others that I would normally review or try out is that it's a deck builder game. And I'm normally a little bored by deck builder games, but this one is new and it's for families, 2 to 4 players. It's the kind of game in every other category that I would like. It's just a question of whether or not the mechanic is really something that's going to draw me or draw you in. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this review. Living Forest is a competitive game where you are a forest guardian and you are competing with your opponents to be the first to satisfy one of 3 victory conditions involving protecting the forest in some way. The forest is under attack by a fire spirit called Onibi, and so the 3 conditions are to either put out 12 fires, or grow 12 trees, or collect 12 flowers. There are no victory points in this game, it's just the first person to get 12 is declared the winner. Now those 3 objectives can be satisfied by taking any one of 3 different types of actions, and like many other deck builder games, in this game you draw a certain number of cards and you can perform 1 or 2 actions using the cards drawn. At the end of your turn you discard your hand and you draw for the next round. The rules for drawing cards are very similar to another game called Mystic Vale, where there is no hand limit. Instead, you're looking at the symbols on the cards, and you have to stop when you hit a certain number of symbols. Those symbols are called gregarious symbols, and you can have up to 2 in your hand, but once you have 3 gregarious symbols, you must stop drawing, and you can only take 1 action. So up until that point, you can kind of press your luck. For example, you already have 2 gregarious symbols, but you want 1 more card. So should you draw 1 more card and possibly risk taking a 3rd gregarious symbol and only getting 1 action, or should you stop while you're still able to take 2 actions and take your turn? In any case, once you're done drawing, you can decide on what actions you want to take. One of the actions is to buy more cards, and much like the game Splendor or something, you have different tiers of cards where the highest tier are the most valuable for your hand but also the most expensive, and the lowest tier are cheaper and a little less valuable for your hand or may have more gregarious symbols. Now when you buy one of those cards, it goes into your discard pile and you have a chance of drawing it in a later round. One of the benefits of buying more cards, aside from making your deck stronger, is that some of the cards have flowers on them, and getting 12 flowers at any point in the game is one of the victory conditions. The other actions are pretty unique for a deck builder game. One thing you can do is you can use the symbols on your cards in order to plant trees in your forest. Now each of those trees, when placed in the forest, could potentially give you a benefit if you complete any rows or columns, and there's a benefit on each of the tiles. However, there is a rule where you cannot have any 2 of the same type of tree in your forest. And again, one of the victory conditions is to have 12 trees. The next action is the most unique of all of them, and to describe it, I should explain a little bit more about the flow of the game. At the end of every round, every card that is bought is going to leave a fire in the guardian tree, in the center of the gameplay, and more fire can hurt players. In fact, the way that you prevent yourself from being hurt is by having water icons. However, if you don't have enough water in your forest, you have to draw a Fire Varan card, which is basically a card that gives you a gregarious icon and doesn't provide any other benefit at all. So people don't want to draw those cards. What they'd like to do is put out fire instead. So that brings me to the third action. The third action is that you can use the water on your cards to put out a fire. And of course you have to have a certain number of waters equal to the number on the fire, but once you put it out, you get credit for helping save the forest. And again, one of the victory conditions is to have 12 fires put out. And then there's moving forward in the circle of spirits. Each player has a little standee that is on a track, and you can use the symbols on your cards to move forward on that track. If you move beyond another player, you can take a token from them, which counts as your scoring. So for example, you could take a a player fire token from them, or you could take one of the player tree tokens from them. And that's essentially taking a victory point away from them and adding it to yourself. And then lastly, if you have a really bad hand and you can't really do anything, or if you just want to, you can take a fragment tile. Fragment tiles are tiles that allow you to ignore gregarious symbols and help strengthen your hand later in the game. You can also get fragment tiles by moving forward in the Circle of Spirits. In fact, when moving forward in the Circle of Spirits, there are different kinds of bonuses depending on the space that you land. So that's how you play the game, but is the game any good? So here's something I really like about it. First of all, I love that it's finally a game that's not about getting the most victory points. I think that's cool. It's not necessarily enough to make a game great, but it is cool to have something that's a little bit different. And you can feel the pressure as things accelerate towards the end. Someone's getting closer and closer to getting 12 fire or getting 12 trees. And that's actually really exciting. But what makes the game most interesting to me is the dynamic that is created when players select their strategy. Here's what I mean. Let's suppose multiple players are going for the flower strategy and they want to get 12 flowers. Well, if everybody is buying cards, at the end of the round, a lot of fire is going to come out. And then those people are going to be hurt by fire, and it kind of opens up a space where players have more opportunities to put out fire. So buying lots of cards actually makes it easier for the player whose strategy is to put out more fires. Similarly, if multiple players are trying to put out fires, then they're going to kind of step on each other's toes a little bit because they won't necessarily be buying enough cards. If you're not buying enough cards, there won't be enough fire for everybody to put out. So the fire mechanic and then the flower mechanic sort of depend on each other. And as for the tree mechanic, at least during the times that I've played the game, the tree mechanic seems a little bit more balanced and doesn't seem to have as much of an impact on the other two mechanics. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the point of the tree mechanic is it's kind of the most moderate way to go through the game. So that whole idea is what I find most interesting about this game. It gives the game a lot more thematic feeling than, well, for example, Mystic Veil or Dominion or something, like where all you're doing is doing actions with the cards. Other types of deck builders, it kind of feels like you're just manipulating symbols on the cards. Living Forest seems like it has a lot more going on. There's a tile placing mechanic when you're building or planting trees. There's a race mechanic as you're going around the Circle of Spirits. And then you even have to kind of have this like semi-cooperative feel where players almost have to work together to put out fire. Otherwise, they're going to all be impacted. I think it's a great game. But then lastly, does it play well with kids? The answer is absolutely yes. Everything is symbol-based. There's no words. Kids that can't read can play this game. My youngest daughter is going to be 6. She can play this game. I really like that this is a game that looks appealing and it's actually a lot of fun. It's very easy to understand. A little bit more complicated than some other deck builders, but still not beyond the ability for a young kid. So lastly, let's talk about the attributes for the game. Thematically, I think it's a little bit better than some other deck builders that I've played, but it's not, extraordinary. I'd probably say the theme is about a 4. The mechanics are pretty impressive. There might be a little too much going on. So, it's not probably 6. 6 or maybe a 7 for mechanics. For the components, though, this game has some extraordinary components. I really like the artwork. I really like the tray that you can pick up trees from. And the great thing about that tray is that it is its own storage solution, which fits nicely in the box. This is a game that looks really great. Very easy to set up. You take out the tray, you put it on the table. I think that's brilliant. What else? The figures are the little standees. They're cardboard. There's no miniatures in this game at all. So there's that. I'd say for components, it's an 8. For strategy, you're playing the hand that you're dealt, so to speak. It's not very, very difficult, and there's not a lot you can do wrong. That's one of the reasons why it plays so well with kids. I'd say for strategy, like a 5. And then for complexity, it's about a 4. There is a medium amount of luck and a modest amount of player interaction because of that dynamic of the victory conditions. This is one of my personal favorite family games right now. I highly recommend it, the game Living Forest. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you're interested in this shirt that I'm wearing, The Evolution of Games, you can check this out on the Perfect Board Game store on my Shopify. I will leave links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.